To trope or not to trope? That is the question. And whether you choose to behold its merits, align its purpose, or disavow its petulance and codify its moroseness, one will be drawn for all time. Conversations will be had, and its sacred keeper, the one AF Stewart, may reside over this procedure, but make no mistake, it is you, the Horde, playing judge, jury, and executioner, and while civil tongues will prevail, the question remains, even if sullen by blood, is it time to answer the call to trope or not to trope?
Okay, so we are finally live. If any of the audience is still there, I am glad you waited. So sorry for the delay. We were having some technical issues getting me into the studio. It's been fixed now. I am here, thank heavens. We will probably be going till 10:30 instead of 10 o'clock. So yeah, and my apologies to Dalen for making him put his workshop an hour earlier than being a half hour late. Okay. So as you can see, we are here to talk trope or not to trope. And our trope tonight is the secret villain twist. And our guest is Heather Fleischman. And so introduce yourself if you would, please.
Hi, everybody. I am Heather Fleischman. I've been writing since 2007. I have 16 published to date. Most recently was an anthology series with another group of authors that I have 2 more coming out over the next 2 years.
Yes, well, that sounds great. So today we are talking about the secret villain twist, and that's when the villain is not apparent in a story, or the good guy suddenly becomes the villain, things like that. So, and Heather will be defending this trope, and I will be railing against it. So the first thing I have to start here is the big issue I have with this trope is that readers invest their time in the character, and then suddenly, if you twist the character, that can be rather jarring and it can be rather off-putting to some readers. So, how would you handle not making it this unpleasant experience for the reader?
Well, I read once by Christopher Vogler. He said to write every villain as if they're the hero of their own story. Villains go through complex motivation, obsession, humanity, all these things that make for excellent character and storytelling. And most of the time, I don't even look at the villain as if he is a standard villain. I'm looking at it as if, he is his own indefinite character. He has all of his own ways, all of his own means, all of his own motivation. And I leave it up to the readers if they want to define him as a standard, good versus evil villain, or if they want to give him a little bit more humanity.
Yeah. So when you're having the secret villain twist, timing is everything for the reveal. So if you get it wrong, it can come off like a cheat or a bait and switch. So, and sometimes reveals, they just wait too long and it's like it doesn't make sense. So how would you handle the reveal of the secret villain? What's your secret to making it a smooth twist?
I look at it sort of as like the Scooby-Doo theory, where you already know who the villain is. You're just waiting for him to be unmasked. So you're going to see it in ways of, how they're acting, the words they're saying, the situations that they're put in, against some of the other characters. So in a way, you're always going to know. You're just waiting for it to be revealed.
So subtlety is the key there.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so, and that's actually a good point because it leads into the next the next point I have, which is sometimes a writer can be too obvious that it's a secret villain, and so they can telegraph it, and it's kind of like, let's play the villain. Oh, right, it's that guy. Yeah.
Yeah.
So how do you balance that between subtlety and not being too obvious, but still giving them enough clues?
Well, one of my main characters in a book that I released, I think it was in 2015. His name was Warren, and he spent his whole life, in pursuit of this one girl who turned out to want to have absolutely nothing to do with him. And that's what drove him from being what everybody saw as the good guy to being somebody that became more selfish and more driven towards, tactics that weren't good in nature. So I use a lot of situations like that where you just get put in these impossible situations and you just have to make that choice. And however it plays out is just how you have to write it out. So I use that mostly to lead into characters and scenes and writing from multiple perspectives so that you get the hero's perspective, you get the villain's perspective, and you get to make up your own mind.
Yeah, that's true. And I would say in that particular scenario, though, you also kind of seeded in a little villain, I think, villainy into the character, because I mean, as you said, he was kind of obsessed with this one girl to the
Yes.
so there's a little villainy in there to begin with too. So that's a clever
It's a
idea.
lot about the character definition, as you're writing them in, because you can give these people these characteristics that are going to define them as the story progresses and as the character development progresses.
Yeah. So another point about this particular trope that can sometimes turn it into a bad trope is bad motivations, that the author doesn't really get into the whys of why the villain was good and now he's bad, or why the person turned their allegiance or something of that nature. So how do you go in depth into giving them the whys without revealing the secret?
That's where the turn of perspective comes in, because I give a lot of my readers the opportunity to read from the perspective of multiple main characters so that they can see the driving, they can see their thought process, they can see things through their eyes, and give them, the opportunity to experience the emotion from multiple points of view.
Good point. So another bad idea with this particular twist is that sometimes people rely too much on a stereotype to telegraph that this person is going to be a villain, like the outcast trope, or the evil doctor, or the step parent, or the eco activist that's secretly a polluter. So how do you avoid falling into that trap, do you think? What would your advice be for writers for not falling into that trap?
I am all for a supervillain, but when it comes down to it, leave something up to the imagination. I want to be able to put, my own thoughts and my own feelings and align them with these characters. So to be able to look at it from that perspective and write from that perspective, it can really help give the readers more opportunity to sort of create their own emotions in the storyline.
Hmm. So, so how would you? What would it be? Some advice for writers that they're kind of stuck in this cliche. How did they go about elevating themselves above it?
Mary Shelley said that the history of villains is much more entertaining because it gives the opportunity to become created and not, born. So take the time, write out your characters, give them an interesting backstory, treat them like they're the hero for 5 minutes, and you're going to see that, you have so much more opportunities to explore than just, I'm going to cut and dry, you're the bad guy, and that's it.
Yeah. So, along with stereotypes, sometimes the secret villain twist can lean into cliche, as like you see this like Mission Impossible is a bit of a did this quite a bit. Like the romantic interest suddenly is the secret villain. The colleague, longtime colleague, is the secret villain. The trusted friend is the secret villain. So if you want to use these particular characters as the secret villain, how do you avoid the cliche that goes around with these people?
That is an absolutely good question that I did not prepare for. So that one's going to take me a little bit more thought. I think that defining certain points in your storyline, if you're a builder, can give you the opportunity to step outside of these normals and try to find a way to write it in that is not so stereotypical, not so cliche. Because we all know the story of Cinderella. We all know, it was her sisters and it was her stepmother. And it was this whole big elaborate story of, this is the way it's going to be to get your happily ever after. But you, of all people, know that that's not how it always has to be. You have brought on some great twists when it comes to, how do you redefine the stereotypical character? And I think, that a lot of people could take that example from you as well to say, how do I step outside and redefine this now?
Yeah, well, I did do a whole book of redoing the fairy tales.
Yes, you did.
I got to say that was fun playing with the villains there, though. I mean, I don't think I had any secret villain. Oh, no. Well, actually, I did have a secret villain. To be honest, I
See
did.
who pays attention.
Yeah, I did have a secret villain in my mermaid the Little Mermaid retelling I did.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
Yeah.
So, so I guess they do kind of sneak in there whether you want them to.
Yes, they do. And I think that's what makes them so beautiful is it doesn't matter how much we want to argue with them. If they want to be who they are, they're going to be that way. And sometimes we just have to let them.
Yeah, well, I was playing with the romance in that particular story, which is how I ended up with a secret villain. So, because I've never liked the Little Mermaid romance. It never made sense. I mean, the Disney one, kind of, because they Disneyfied it and everyone ends up happily ever after in Disney. So, but with the original Hans Christian Andersen story, that particular romance, it just never made sense. I mean,
No, it didn't.
that's a very sad story.
It's still one of my favorites, though. I like a good sad story.
Yeah. Oh, Hans Christian Andersen. Oh, he traumatized me as a child. Never had any problem with the Grimm brothers fairy
Mhm.
tales because I don't know. Apparently, I can handle cannibalism and witches a lot better than poor sad match girls dying on the street. So
Yes.
okay, so another trope, another variation on this trope is the falsely reformed villain, which kind of always gets me because a lot of authors. It kind of gets me because it's so obvious. Some authors make it very obvious that the villain has not reformed. And it's like, it's like the formerly evil villain somehow inexplicably is trusted by everybody now, but oh no, he's still evil, gasp. And then we have this one character who's in the corner going, I told you so.
Yes. Yes. The magic of I told you so.
Yeah, so it's like, so if you do want to do the reform villain falling back into villainy, how would you suggest doing it properly?
Ignorance is not bliss. Okay. I don't care what anybody tells you. You need to plan for this because as an avid reader and a rabid writer, you really need to take the time to make things believable. Because if something is not believable, I won't even leave it on my shelves. It'll go to the donation bin. And that is like my least favorite thing to say as a writer, but just take the time to make it believable. We don't like Captain Obvious moments. So
No.
sit down, think it through. Even if it's on your second, third, or fourth rewrite, you've got the idea, then refine it until it makes sense in a less ignorant way. It's about the nicest way I can say it.
Yeah, I mean, it would be good to actually, if you're doing that particular trope, that particular variation on the trope, my suggestion would be to have the villain actually be sincere in his original attempt to reform,
Yeah.
just not be successful at it.
I have heard it time and time again. I think we were watching Megamind the other day when he said, I am just really good at being bad. And that just stuck with me because, there are some characters out there that, are just that really, really, really want to be one way or the other, and they don't dig into the complexities of their own characteristics and their own definitions. So they think that, it's that whole black versus white thing again, and it has to be one way or the other when nothing is. Not fantasy, not reality, not, nonfiction. All of it has so many different layers that can be dug into. And we make better experiences for our readers if we take the time to do that.
Yes, we definitely do. So another thing that sometimes bothers me that I see with this particular trope is you have characters who are secret villains. They're with the heroes, or they're on a quest, or there's some sort of interaction with the good guys and the secret villain, and they're actively sabotaging their own villainy. They're actively sabotaging their own plans. And it doesn't make sense because if you're there with the heroes, why wouldn't you be playing devil's advocate and trying to stop these things or divert them or even sabotage them covertly? So just standing by and letting the heroes, rescue the princess or whatever, makes no sense to me. So how would you handle that? And what would your suggestions for writers to avoid that trap?
The only way that would make sense to me is if they wanted to just actively torment the good guy. Okay, you got her? Okay, I got her back. Okay, you got her? Okay, I got her back. And you can make a decent plot line out of that.
That's actually very good. I like that.
I could see a villain actually, go through the effort of, hey, I'm Mr. Nice Guy here, but I'm only hanging out with you because I want to see how you're succeeding so that I know how to make you fail better later. I think that would be a great approach to it.
Yeah, having played cat and mouse. Now that would make sense if he's actively playing cat and mouse with the hero.
Yeah.
And playing with his food, as it were.
Exactly.
Okay, so that's actually a good approach to that. So, another thing that you sometimes see, especially in fantasy books, is good characters have been corrupted by some kind of spell, a curse, or magical artifact, and they're slowly being villainous. Yet no one remarks on it. No one says anything. No one tries to stop it. It's like, yeah, do you really not like this character at all? It's like, I mean, I thought he was supposed to be your friend. Maybe you actually want him to be the villain so you can kill him or something. It's like,
right?
yeah. So again, if you're doing some of this like cursed magical object plot line, how do you make that plausible and
I'm
still
not sure
have
if
the guy still have the characters not doubting him too much.
I don't know if Patty Joe remembers the first two novels that I released back in 2007. My main character goes through so much brutal stuff. I mean, they're trying to kill her. They're trying to kill everybody she cares about. They killed off like 15 of her boyfriends over the course of 4 books. And she just finally threw up her hands and said, okay, I quit. You want me to be bad with you? I'm going to be bad with you. And then she finally eventually came to her senses. But that took like 4 books to get through this entire character arc of, this bad guy is just really nasty and has destroyed everything in between, 2 generations to get through, to the point where the character finally breaks and then has to rebuild. So, I mean, sometimes we have to go a little bit further around the way than we thought we were going to have to, because for me, that started off as, a one and done, and it turned into 4 years of my life.
Yeah, you think your character would have stopped dating after a while with 14 dead boyfriends, but she had hope, I guess.
Sometimes you just never lose hope, and I literally have no room to talk, and I can just hear my sister laughing over there.
Yeah, it's like, she'd rather not lose hope. She'd rather lose boyfriends than hope, I guess.
Exactly.
Okay, so, okay, apparently don't kill off all your boyfriends is one way not to do it. Anyway, but I guess basically you have people notice that things are happening, and I mean, but I guess people sometimes they don't notice even in real life.
But the readers noticed it more than I did, because as I'm going back and I'm rereading it and I'm going, wow, I can't believe I wrote some of this stuff. What was I thinking? And the story just got away from me in a couple of places there where, if I would have had common sense and I was that character, I would have quit. I would have thrown my hands up. I would have quit. I would have went to the monastery, and that'd have been the end of the story right there. And, sometimes perseverance is not a good quality. And, 20 years worth of writing will tell you that.
Yeah, maybe you need to write a sequel or all the boyfriends come back as zombies or something.
I don't want to see any of them ever again. 20 years later, I still do not want to see any of them ever again.
Okay, so another sort of variation of that particular thing is when you've got a supposedly good character, but he's always doing sketchy things and no one calls him on it. Now, do you think that, and this can go like you said, the readers will notice that sort of thing. So how do you know when to put a break on characters not being sketchy or being too sketchy and people not noticing it?
It depends on the character. It depends on the genre, because for some of my characters, they don't have anybody that can check their attitude at the door. They were very solitary, or they lost all their family members, or, something happened where they were put in a situation where they didn't have somebody that knew them long enough to check their attitude at the door. So you kind of have to work through the character as you're working on the storyline, because if you have somebody that can check them, I suggest putting in somebody that can check them. Trust me, just trust me on that one, because I still get feedback, years later from a book that I won't even promote anymore that's got my name on it, because nobody checked me at the door on that one until after it was already in print. And I'm like, okay, I can look at it. I can see it. That's not my favorite one out of the ones I've written. I see your point. So maybe having some outside feedback, getting into some groups where you can get beta readers and things like that, to just check your ego, check your characters, check your plot lines, make sure things come across the way that, makes sense and is engaging, and you're following along, some sort of pathway to create an intriguing story without getting stuck in the cliches.
Yeah, definitely. I think beta readers would probably uh, catch most of these these bad variations.
Yeah.
Okay, so another thing that sometimes happens with the secret villain twist is authors use the least expected character because they want to keep it a secret, and they're thinking, well, we'll just do this kind of obscure character and he will suddenly be the villain. Trouble with that particular one is if it's a throwaway character that nobody remembers, nobody's going to care if he's
Yeah,
the villain.
just please don't. I mean, just please don't. Because I mean, okay, the best line, the best one-liner, Harvey Dent, The Dark Knight. You either die a hero or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain. You have to take the time. You just do. You can't develop a non-character that is just standing off to the side in chapter 1 that you didn't even give a description to, and then drop him in chapter 20 and go, there's your bad guy. It just doesn't work. It just
Yeah,
doesn't work. You have to give some sort of emotional attachment, even if it's just mild.
yeah, definitely. Because especially if you're going to have him as the antagonist or the villain, because readers have to care about the antagonist one way or the other. They either have to love to hate him or they have to hate
Mhm.
the villain.
Exactly.
So, and on the opposite side of that is the most expected character, the obvious villain. Now, that can be done well, but if it's not, it really just the readers are going, yeah, we all guessed it, like in chapter 3, people.
Like,
So,
yeah.
so how do you build in doubts and twists with a character that people are going to expect to be the villain?
Don't be predictable. Avoid the predictable, monotonous activities. So you have your villainous character. You kind of, you're sitting right there on the edge where this is not going to end well, but throw something in there that makes him look kind of okay. Give him a little bit of that humanity. Give him that little bit of relatability.
Yeah.
And just make sure that people can connect, because it's how we connect to our characters and it's how we connect to our stories that really gives us a good storytelling and story reading experience.
Yeah, have him save the dog or the cat.
Yeah, exactly. He just took that kid's kitten out of a tree. How bad can he be? I mean, really.
Yeah, as long as he loves the animals, the readers will be attracted to.
He feeds the pigeons every day at lunch in the park. So what if he does it by himself? So what's if he's telling them all of his evil plans for the day? At least he's feeding the pigeons.
Yeah, the pigeons might become his minions one day.
Exactly.
So, another variation on the secret villain twist is the last minute switch of allegiances. Now, this was very well done in the first season of Game of Thrones, where Littlefinger switched allegiances.
Mm-hmm.
And so it can be done well, but it can also feel forced or like a plot device. Um, so, how would you recommend doing this in a smooth manner so you get a Game of Thrones type reveal as opposed to something that just kind of clunks?
Focus more on the character interactions, because you're going to know how people respond if you spend time watching how people respond. So for me, I'll go to a park, I'll go to a cafe, I'll go somewhere, and I will people watch for a minute, and I will see that couple that's having that argument, or I will see, the kids with the family that are out for the holiday, and you commit that stuff to memory, so that when you're writing these situations, you can say, okay, I might not have personally been in it, but this is how I would sit down, this is how I would write it, and then take the time, to let it sit, and then go back and read it again when you're doing, your edits and things like that, can really give you that second set of eyes to bring out that depth of character.
Yeah, I think that's why Littlefinger worked so well when it was revealed that the switch of allegiances, because they kind of alluded to the fact he wasn't a very likable character, but yet he had this attachment to Caitlin. So you never really questioned it until you questioned it. So that's actually some good advice to see how people interact and to use that.
Yes.
So another variation on this is the blackmailed or coerced villain twist, where you have the good guy, but he turns out to be working for the villain or some in some capacity because he's being blackmailed, or they've kidnapped a family member, or some sort of coercion. And while that can work, well, it can also come across as cliche, and it can also come across as feeling a little wishy-washy, or maybe you're sort of like you're not really willing to commit to having this character be bad because you're kind of giving him an out to be good again. So how would you suggest handling that so it doesn't feel like it's not genuine?
I really wish there was a way to get everybody on the same page about, just certain mindsets. But you have to understand that not every choice is a mistake. But every mistake started off as a choice. So we take these choices and we make these paths and we do these things. And sometimes it's just the best we can do for the situation that we're in at any given point in time. So we're going to have those characters that are going to make just the stupidest decisions they could possibly make. But we write based on the human concept, whether, they're a fantasy based or they're human based. And to be human is to be flawed and to have depth and to make mistakes and to make changes and to show redemption. So there's ways that we can write it that's not going to come across as cliche or cut and dry, but we have to take the time to express that in a way that readers are going to find relatable.
So you're suggesting to come at it from an emotional point of view.
Yes.
Yeah, so that the character, no matter what he's doing, it's always for emotion. Either it's for the family that's being held hostage, or it's for some other sort of yeah, I like this comment just to say so much gray between black and white way of thinking. Yes, there is. There's a lot of gray. And I think that's where writers need to stay, is in the grays a lot most of the time. I mean,
Yes.
there are some situations I think where black and white sort of needs to come into play, but most of it's gray. Anyway, so another thing that sometimes annoys me about this trope is you get the false ending with the secret villain. They've won the war, they've won the battle, and they think they've beaten the villain, but oh wait, there's more. And and then readers are going, wait, what? They're either confused, they fall flat, or it leaves them with the dreaded cliffhanger. So what's your feelings on that? Do you like that sort of like, oh wait, it's not over, and the cliffhanger sort of conclusion climax to a story?
I don't know, Trish. Do I like cliffhangers? I mean, I've only got like 3 series that I never finished that probably need like 2 more books each in them that I just finally went, okay, I have had enough. of these characters.
I'm not sure that's a cliffhanger more than just maybe series burnout, but
no, I think that there's always room for improvement as writers. So if we try to make intentional cliffhangers, it always comes over feeling more forced. I think, sometimes we're reading through one of our old stories and we go, oh crap, I left that wide open. And we don't even realize that we're doing it. And then other times, we try to do it on purpose and it comes across as forced. So I'm going to be the big advocate on this one again and say, edit, get people to read your stuff. Make sure, that you're following through on plot lines, because the first book I published in 2007, my child was 5, 6, 7 years old. And she pointed out more typos and more plot holes than my editor did in 8 years. Okay. Yeah.
okay, apparently you have a very smart child.
Obnoxiously smart.
Okay, so do you think that the problem with sometimes, having like two villains at the end there stems from a writer hanging on to an original ending and not adapting to their story?
Yeah. I think that a lot of time we hang on to our ideas of what we wanted it to be because, we planned it out to do this, 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 and this. And then it took off running on a train wreck through an old folks home and we couldn't catch back up to it. So I've had a couple of situations like that where I have just had to walk away from things in process because I could not let go of what I expected it to be. And it wanted to be something entirely different.
Yeah, I don't really have that problem though, because my stories just do what they want, and despite what I plan and outline and stuff, and I just generally it ends up better than what I originally thought. So.
This is a recent thing for me. This was just recent in the last couple of years worth of getting back into writing because I retired on one of these shows, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago now. And I wasn't going to get back into it. I wasn't going to do it anymore. I was just gone. And then it just came back full force. And then I started arguing with myself over it. Well, if you think it's going to be this way, then it's going to have to be that way, or you're going to have to do it that way. And I have spent more time arguing with myself than just letting the story be what it wants to be.
Yeah, sometimes that is hard. I mean, and sometimes you don't know how the story's supposed to go. That's my big problem is a lot of times I don't know how the story is supposed to go. I get to a point and I'm going, okay, I need to get from here to this point over here because I know how that point goes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like connecting it. Yeah, that's
and and then you get in the anthologies where you get this much and your story wants to do that much. And it don't fit. So what do? Do you chop it up? Do you put it away? Do you do something else? And it's a whole new learning process.
Yeah, I do not have that problem at all because I am an underwriter. I always write way less than what the book will or the story will end up being. So yeah, I always have to add stuff to my mind, so not take it away. So another problem with this villain twist is that sometimes, especially during a series like 3 or 4 books, all of a sudden you get a villain retcon. It's like, oh wait, the main villain we've been following, this antagonist, isn't actually the villain at all. He's the faux villain or the patsy or the pawn. And it was actually this nice character all along. Well, aren't you impressed now?
Which can work out great.
Yeah, despite the author, me, not leaving any clues, any foreshadowing. It's just because I've hit a point and I can't figure out how to defeat the other villain, so I'm going to give you a new one I can defeat or something. It's like, so how do you think that writers should keep a series or even a story going so that the villain is consistent, or your surprise villain actually makes sense and doesn't overshadow what the reader's expectations are?
I used to think that when all else failed, just kill him.
I still think that.
Seriously, just kill them off, and then either somehow later they survived it, or you pop up with a new character later on. But at the end of
Yeah.
the day, you get mad enough to blow up the entire building, and you don't go back to it until you feel better.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, in my world, when you kill them off and you want to bring them back, that's what ghosts and zombies are for. So
Yes.
mm, I'm all for killing off characters. So I agree with that solution.
Sometimes anything worth doing is worth overdoing.
Yeah.
And
Well, in my most recent book that's up for pre-order now, I had a problem of killing off the girlfriend because I didn't want it to appear as like I was fridging her, like killing her off just for plot device,
yeah,
even though I kind of was. Um, so I killed off everybody in the village. I just massacred the entire village, and she died with them. It's like I didn't fridge her. I killed everybody.
exactly.
That is my solution. If you're ever in a problem where you need to fridge somebody, just kill everybody off and solves the problem. So yeah. Anyway, so another problem is when they use the twist villain in the book for shock value and not for plot. So what's your opinion on that?
Shock value works, but not with villains. For me, villains need more than just the aha, here I am moment. They need their spotlight. They need their conflict. They need their resolutions, just like heroes do. And to not give them that and just give, the aha, here I am moment, it just feels like you're cheating them out of so much more.
I like that shock value has value, but not for villains. I like that. Okay, so another problem with the secret villain twist is that your faux villain or your red herring villain is more interesting than the villain that is shown in the reveals. So, and readers are actually disappointed that the nice character turned out to be the villain. They wanted the one they thought was the villain. So, how would you go about making that sort of twisty thing so that your one villain isn't better than the other one?
I don't know if I have mastered that yet. Honestly, I think for me, both villains have just as much merit with the way that I write, that I don't see much disappointment that one wasn't enough of a villain and one was too much of a villain, because I take the time to give them all a little bit more in-depth character development and more exposure. As I don't write in one point of view or just in first person. I write more omnipotent so that you see different angles, and then you get the whole picture as if you're watching a movie and not just staring at one character's point of view.
Yeah. Well, if you're making both villains, your twist and your false villain, equal in dastardliness, then I don't think you're going to have a problem. So
Yeah.
okay, so another issue with some stories is when the protagonist is the villain. Now, this can work, but quite often it's just some of his previous actions don't make any sense anymore when you reveal the protagonist to be the actual villain of the piece. So, how would you seed a protagonist villain so that it all makes sense in the end? Like bring all the plot threads to a cohesive whole.
I have a series that I never published, It was based off of the Seven Deadly Sins, and every one of the sins had their own book. And this was my first attempt at making novels where the bad guy actually won. Hence why, it never got published, because I could not get over the fact that I wanted to keep certain things secret and watch the villain sneak up on the main character without, the main character, noticing these things. So that was something that I actually struggled with, to the point where I didn't publish a whole series, because I could not find how to make it believable and interesting and entertaining from the villain's point of view.
Interesting. I've done a couple of books from the villain's point of view. Of course, I've never actually turned the hero, or have I heard? I'm trying to remember if I've actually turned the hero into the villain. It's quite possible.
But that's what got me started on reading your books. Is, I'm like, this is a great idea, and I could not figure out how to do it. I could not figure out how to, get that engaging content. And you've always had that one level right there where, you could get the engaging content out of, somebody that looked like a hero, but in fact wasn't quite. And that was something, I always found just out of my reach.
Yeah, well, I suggest watching a lot of true crime shows.
Exactly.
Yeah, because I mean, it's true though. You watch the true. That's how I do it. Is that you watch the true crime and you see normal people who are actually reasonably nice in their real lives, right? And yet they do just that one thing because they want something so much they're willing to go to any length to get it. And that's, I think, kind of the key that I've always used. It's like,
Yeah.
it's like that one point, that one little tipping point, because that's usually what it is. It's just that one tipping point turns someone. And then there's generally a little ego in these
I mean,
people.
I know some people who made great career criminals, and I could not come up with some of the stuff that they lived, let alone, come up with it in a fantasy setting. So to be able to just, look at it from the perspective of, can this be believable? It
Yeah.
is just, how I feel authors need to approach certain topics, whether it's making, the hero the villain, or making the villain the actual hero, or making the lines so blurred between the two that it doesn't matter anymore. We just need to figure out, how do we approach it in a way that's going to be believable?
Yeah, definitely. So, the one thing I think that probably would get any reader with the secret villain twist is when you get to the end of the book, the villain's revealed, and then he does the info dump monologue.
Oh,
Yes, he stands up and he's you didn't realize it, but I am the villain, and I did all these things, and he lists the entire plot holes that the author didn't fill. So, how do you avoid doing that?
there's something in law that's called the statute of limitations. If anything that you have done falls within that statute of limitations where it can still be brought against you by a court of law, don't talk about it. I don't care if you're a fictional character or a real person, just don't do it. Okay? Just don't.
I agree with that, but that leads right back to the true crime shows where all the people who do the heists in these true crime shows get caught because they talk about it.
Exactly. Just don't. If you're going to do one thing really, really, really well, just keep it to yourself.
Yes.
There's only two ways this is going to work. If two people know about it, one of them has to be dead.
Yes. And if you're the villain, you can arrange that. Oh, yeah, yes, I definitely agree with this. Criminals are often dumb.
That's the thing, Sean. It depresses me so much because, okay, I recently started going for my PhD, right? And I am like, I finally get it. I finally get why all supervillains have doctor in front of their name, okay? Because I am slowly going insane writing all of these term papers and I haven't even got to my final thesis yet. So, having the stupid criminal on top of the fact that they're, either a doctor or a supervillain or somebody that's gotten away with, murder for 50 years and they finally do this one stupid thing of bragging about it over Christmas dinner. Why?
I don't know. It's like, I don't know why in real life, and I don't know why in fiction. It's like,
It just doesn't make any sense to me. I mean, I have never wanted to say something out loud that I could possibly get in trouble for. I will write about it all day long. I can write you a work of fiction or fantasy that can make your hair stand on end. But when it comes down to it, you brag, you get caught. You do something arrogant, you get caught. If you want to be really good at being a bad guy, just keep your mouth shut and be bad. Who are you trying to impress? If you have to impress somebody, then you're not doing it right.
yeah, I mean, that's the thing. And you see these shows, like going back to true crime, you see these shows where spouse murders their husband or wife and whatever, and the first thing they do is they call the insurance company. It's like 2 days after your spouse was murdered, don't call the insurance company. It's like that is like a big red flag for the police.
Or
But anyway,
at least make out a list that says, okay, here's my insurance information. Here's my insurance adjuster. Here's my insurance adjuster's card. Save it to the list. If anything happens to me, call him first.
yeah.
And then, make it look like your wife wrote it before, she mysteriously vanished.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not quite insurance. Well, I suppose it is insurance fraud because they've actually killed their spouse to get the insurance. But
Yeah.
it's like, no, it's motive, people. It's motive. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Do not talk to me about that movie, Joe. Don't ever talk to me about that movie. That movie, it would telegraph the ending so hard. That movie, oh, good. I have things. That is one of the movies that is on my list for being a problem. But anyway,
Oh.
uh, okay. So one last thing here before we wrap it up, and it's when you have, especially in fantasy and sci-fi or whatever, you have the tragic dead hero return, either through fake death or becoming a resurrected whatever, and now he's the villain. So now you can do that well, but so often it becomes like just kind of like a last desperate gasp, maybe in a series or something like that. So how would you do that if you were going to resurrect a hero and make him the villain?
Resurrecting any character is already going to come with its own set of complications.
This is true.
So you have to account for the fact of, okay, do they remember the death experience? Do they remember the resurrection experience? Where were they when they mysteriously vanished? I mean, all of these are plot angles that you are going to want to sit down and think out every possible choice that your readers can come up with of why this is going to be a bad idea before you put it into print. Because you're going to want to combat that. You're going to want to analyze it yourself. You're going to want to find a way to write it that's not going to come across as cheesy. Because cheesy does not get the readers. Well, it doesn't retain them. You can get them once, but it will not retain them.
Yeah. I would recommend, Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I mean, she didn't become the villain, but when they resurrected her, they did an excellent job
Yes,
of showing the consequences to her of that resurrection. And that's actually,
exactly.
yeah. So if you're looking for that, that's a good reference to use that
That
particular.
is an excellent reference.
Hmm. Okay, so I think we dissected the trope pretty well, and we're coming up on an hour, so we'll wrap the episode up here, and I'll let you tell everybody where they can find you and your books.
All right, everybody, you can find me. I am on Facebook under Enchantingly Entangled Marketing or under Heather Lang. And you can find me on Amazon as author Heather Fleischman or author J.R. Gansky.
Okay, and I'd like to thank you for being a guest today. It was a pleasure chatting with you and debating this trope.
It is always great to see you.
Okay, remember everybody, it's always time to go indie now.